In the many classical debates about solo leveling I've been a part of, there's a TikTok I always think of.
Ever fallen asleep while watching Solo Leveling? Well, you're not alone. Apparently, its studio was tasked with creating a TV anime that would help insomnia patients with sleep. Inspired by the infamously boring South Korean comic, the studio got to work creating the most sleep-inducing show imaginable.
Solo leveling is an anime that exists that is popular. A lot of people can't seem to figure out quite why though. Despite critics handing out high review scores like it's Elon Musk's drug test, they never actually say why the show is good. Sure, they give glowing statements like, a show for gamers or by gamers, a value statement that demonstrates why a certain group of people may like the show, giving the animes 8s or 9s out of 10, but never stating why they themselves like it, seemingly exasperated why they have to review this garbage in the first place. In one review I read, the critics dumped on the abysmal character writing, yet in the same breath said, quote, "Still, as the final moments of the season's show, and as readers know, this is merely a prologue to a larger, more meaningful arc for Jinu." The critic assures himself that the series must get better later. That has to be why people like this slop. Because when the best thing you can say about a show is how good the training arc is, you have no idea what you're talking about, or why you have to review this thing in the first place. However, someone, somewhere out there can explain why they like the show, right? I mean, it won Anime of the Year for 2024. You can't win that without having something going for your story, right? No, the popular thing won a popularity contest, as newsworthy as finding black mold in my closet. Yet, despite its popularity, most critics reckon there is nothing interesting to talk about with solo leveling. It's not a Sword Art Online situation that spawned an entire industrial complex on YouTube of people shitting on that anime for years. Most people reckon there isn't even enough fat to chew on to fill a 5-minute hate segment. Take it from the main guy that kicked the dead horse of SAO, Mother's Basement, who said in a video something to the effect of, "Solo leveling is bad, but not any worse than regular isekai slop that comes out every season." As much as I have respect for these journalists and their lovely opinions on how boring solo leveling is, of which I agree, I contest that there is plenty to shit talk about solo leveling. Much like the glass onion from the movie Glass Onion, solo leveling is a glass onion that's got layers and layers of shit and intrigue that reveals themselves the deeper you peel to its rancid core. But once you arrive at the center, the truth is no less obvious than when you first called it boring. Solo leveling is a stupid story written by a dumb man made for idiots. Because of the unending stupidity of solo leveling, it makes it really hard to talk about the series in any coherent way. Each fuck up from the writer's part cascades into affecting completely different aspects of the story. Therefore, if I want to make this video not an incoherent ADHD nightmare, of which I very much would like to avoid. That being said, I'll have to ask you to bear with me. Because there is just so much wrong with solo leveling, it's going to feel like I'm bouncing between points like the 2020 ping pong Olympic finals between Ma Long and Dmitry Ovcharov. But that's the point of this video, right? To enter into this glass onion, going by layer of stupidity. Starting with the enzymes that has corroded this bulb to its very core, Jinu, the most special boy in all of fiction, who has a laundry list of bullshit that makes sure he never has to be anything more interesting than the toothpick I use to scrape my foot fungus. Look, see, it's right here. Look at it. That's quite cool, huh? That's not very exciting, though. There are a lucky few in solo leveling's world who are awakened with innate abilities, right? They can train as much as they want and increase their control and aptitude over their powers, but they never could increase the size of a fireball, or cast more than one. Whereas Special Boy Jinu can train, in quotes, and eventually cast 1 million fireballs that are the size of at least 2 football fields. Just keeping the measurements simple, so solo leveling fans can keep up. You may be fooled into thinking that this is what makes Jinu a special little boy, and though it is the base of his bullshit, it is only the very tip of the silo of fetid manure Jinu can pull off. He can level up like a video game, meaning he can infinitely improve his base attributes like strength and agility. while also being able to level up his individual skills the more he uses them. And unlike everyone else who appears to be skill locked by class, Jinwoo can learn any skill under the sun, as long as he kills the right enemy, which he can acquire from completing his own special instance dungeons, that no one else is allowed into, by the way, especially girls. They got cuties. And you wouldn't want them to get said cuties on the world-class loot found inside these dungeons. Weapons that cost millions of dollars in the real world only cost Jinwoo 1,000 some odd wacky stacks. These aren't just weapons either. As long as he has the funny bucks, Jinwoo has access to an infinite supply of healing and mana regeneration. Everything found in these dungeons, and everything found outside the dungeons for that matter, can all be stored in Jinwoo's bottomless bag of prison pocket holding, where he can take items out at a moment's notice, even during combat. Oh, and I will be remiss to mention that any of these items can be teleported back into Jinwoo's inventory, meaning if anyone tries to take his weapons, for example, they disappear back into Jinwoo's hand. And also there's a gacha element to all of this shit, making Jinwoo the only person in the world who has profited while gambling. The lucky sod. So yes, this is just a taste of Jinwoo's sweet sticky ooze. And you might be putting the pieces together of why he isn't a very interesting character. And I don't want this to come off like I'm deriding Jinwoo's absurd power level as inherently bad. It is, but there are plenty of shows that do this well. Just look at Saitama or Superman even, which may seem like an unfair comparison, but there is a reality where Jinwoo was among the top crust of this overpowered archetype. All the elements needed are in the first 2 episodes. Oh, the first 2 episodes. How you sold me on the idea that there was anything worthwhile in this series. From good characters like Juhi and Chiyu, to the world it set up. The dichotomy of Jinwoo's perverse desire for power, and how the rest of the world looks down on him for the crime of being weak. So much promise that all gets dashed away by the time the system gets involved. To establish what I mean, I want to extend an olive branch to the solo brain cells, a name the solo leveling fandom came up with themselves, which is quite interesting I think, and break down everything the first 2 episodes has to offer. I swear this is interesting, please follow through, please, please! In a new world of magic, where people can perform extraordinary feats and enter gates into parallel dimensions, we find our hero, Jinwoo, being one of the lucky few granted powers, yet relegated to the very bottom of the totem pole, only being able to provide above minimum wage for his younger sister and his mother suffering from the dreaded plot coma. It's hard to say whether this power is a blessing or a curse for Jinwoo, for he may be able to participate in the exciting world of hunters, he must risk his life every day to do so. Of course, this is a common trope to put the protagonist of the story at the very bottom of a power structure. It gives an outside perspective on a world that we the viewers are outsiders to. Like in Lord of the Rings, we experience its vast depth and greatness only through the eyes of a punk-ass, dirty-ass, dumb-ass hobbit. I'm only noting this because later in the story, this becomes the exact opposite of Jinwoo's role. It gives us perspective when we meet an average person in this world. Those being the hunters that look down on Jinwoo, his party, and just about everyone else, giving him the grand title,
"Call him the weakest hunter of all mankind."
Brutal as it is succinct. No matter where you go in the world, even one filled with magic and opportunity, you always have to have people at the bottom. Thankfully for Jinwoo, someone like Juhi exists, who was given enough power to be a B-rank hunter. She's a hunter that outperforms Jinwoo in nearly every aspect, and even though she's a healer and he's a fighter, she could probably beat his ass if she wanted to. She acts as a lodestone for Jinwoo, healing him back up when he gets his dick pushed in by goblins. But Juhi also acts as a contrast to Jinwoo. She is someone with the power and freedom Jinwoo lacks. She is able to skip joining a guild or raid in higher ranked dungeons, instead prioritizing her own safety above all else, and only going into dungeons far below her station, hence how the two met. Meanwhile, Jinwoo is stuck fighting for his life for only the most meager of scraps. Honestly, just all of this characterization in general acts in stark contrast to the rest of the series, and the fact that it is actually good. Jinu is a guy anyone who's worked a minimum wage job can relate to, and his time spent with Juhi is fun. The fun times don't last for long though, as Jinu, Juhi, and Chaul, a sort of mentor figure for Jinu, and a bunch of other hunters who think Jinu is a little bitch, use the power of democracy to determine if they should enter a double dungeon. What we are told is one of the most dangerous and unpredictable of dungeons. The majority vote in favor, thinking only about the possibility of riches that may lay within, which turns out to be only death, with the party quickly falling into chaos with their lives suddenly on the line. There is one person able to keep a level head in this chaos, however, Jinu. The man's no stranger to death. He was on the bad end of a goblin sword only a little while ago. Though there is a stark difference between goblins and giant stone titans, ultimately, they can be avoided the same way, by keeping calm, analyzing your surroundings, and finding a way out, which Jinu does. By reading the tablet held by one of the statues, Jinu is able to save not just himself, but the rest of the party. This is the first time in his life where anyone else has depended on him, having people trust him more than their own leader, who is currently being on the bad end of the sword at the moment, one held by his other party members, none too happy about the situation they voted for. Again, this is a level of trust Jinu has never experienced. So what if his leg got cut off like one of those Cuban cigar cutters? His party members will carry him, he'll solve the next puzzle, and everyone left will escape alive. That is, unless the final puzzle is a test of faith, that the rest of the party fails horribly, or running towards a door that closes once the fifth person leaves, Jinu being the unlucky sixth. Juhi protested leaving Jinu behind, but when her legs gave out from fear, Jinu and Chaul make the pragmatic decision, and as each person left, they all talked about how they only wanted to get home to their family, acting as if they're the only people with loved ones awaiting at home. Maybe if Jinu was able to tell his side of the story, perhaps one of them would have stayed behind instead? Probably not. But do you know what would have guaranteed Jinu's survival? The one thought that is racing in his head above all else. If only he were stronger. Then he wouldn't even have to be here. Then his party would have trusted him more. Then he could pay for his mother and sister. Then his life wouldn't be so bad. How impactful. And sorry for the rather verbose retelling, but I think it's needed just to show that there really was something going for Solo Leveling, with its first 2 episodes being the absolute peak that the series never gets close to again. If anything, it stands in grand titanic contrast to how bad the series gets only 1 episode later. Compare that to another anime like My Hero Academia, where me and many others would also call its first 2 episodes its peak. But those initial eps showcase all the beauty and wonder MHA has to offer. It shows us everything great about the series, in a short 40-minute or so time span. And now I'm going to tell you why the rest of Solo Leveling only exists as an erect monument of shit, piss and cum tissues in a suspiciously filled trash bin. Okay, let's start off with the big man himself. That wasn't words, sorry about that. Jinu, who goes from a man of action who saves lives through quick wit, into a man who does nothing, and just lets the story unfold around him. Which is just a staple of his character, I guess. For as much as I like Jinu's exciting incident, he never really made the decision to stick behind. It was forced onto him by Juhi being useless. And same goes for Jinu's new world-shattering powers. He just kind of has them now. Look at his face. He was given the abilities to completely break the world he lives in, and he's just like, eh. He wasn't even going to use them at first. The system had to send him to Giga Hell to convince Jinu to act out his own fucking story. Seriously, he would be more in line with a slice-of-life do-nothing show about the secret life of the Tenga Egg than he does being the main character for a shonen. The dude is no nonchalant, he doesn't even put up a fight when the system tells him to murder some freaks. Jinu gets turned into the type of guy whose favorite ice cream flavor is vanilla. He's the type of guy to have Drake be his favorite artist. Becomes the type of man to say, "Oh shucks," when he walks in on his girl getting bareback raw dogged by the mailman. but apparently, what I would call the worst glowdown in anime history, is a point people actually praise about the show. Like, there's this review I read, it was from IGN or somewhere equally trite, that called this the greatest glow-up in modern anime. What? Am I insane, or is the rest of the world actually dumber than I thought? Don't answer that. Instead, look at these two side by side. Jinoo got abs, elongated his head somehow, and chiseled his jaw to a fine point. Even grew a fucking 1.5 feet, and you're telling me that
it's been 1 week since you looked at me, cocked your head to the side and said I'm angry. 5 days since you laughed at me, saying get back together, come back and see me.
All accompanied by a scene where every nurse in Jinoo's hospital begins tripping over themselves because of how wet Jinoo makes them. This is one of the most embarrassing scenes I've seen in anime for a while, and that's saying a lot. Anime is very, very embarrassing right now. But they are right though. Jinoo is a pretty guy. So is the rest of the show, honestly. I know that isn't saying much. What with modern anime being a race to see who can kill the most artists for exhaustion, in order to pump out series that look like God spat his hot load out onto a canvas. But even then, Solo Leveling looks pretty dang good. It lives up to the manhwa, which is also one of the better looking comics I've read. The fight scenes never really get stale, I mean from a looks perspective at least. Jinoo killing an enemy by stabbing it in the eye does get old by like the 5th time he does it, but he does look fucking great while doing it, King. So the anime deserves props for that. Okay, that's enough. Back to the hate. What's really disappointing is that this isn't just a one-off thing either, where Jinoo gets a power boost and the rest of the story can continue on. Oh no, we have to keep doing this, and throw Jinoo into the power scaling particle accelerator. You know how much of the drama of the first 2 eps came from Jinoo relying on his fellow man? Yeah, never again. From now on, characters are introduced and dropped in the span of that episode. No time is given to make them fleshed out or actually real. All time is spent on seeing Jinoo become the specialist, most bestest boy for the whole world. You'll barely get enough time to remember a person's face before the head is lopped off, or they get sent off to go live with Lassie on the farm upstate. The only people outside of Jinoo who stay relevant the whole season is Jinoo's butt buddy and S-rank hunters, who are just gonna be zipped past in season 2 instead. Which is a little loony if you think about it. The whole point of Solo Leveling is that Jinoo can level up, right? We should be taking some time and smell the roses in between ranks, and not just skipping straight to the end. It's like those people who play World of Warcraft with the add-on to just go straight from quest to quest. The only thing that matters is the ding and number going up. This creates scenarios where we spend more time in Jinoo's secret hyperbolic time dungeons than we do anyone else. I'll get into those dank dungeons later, but for now, allow me to walk you through the entirety of Jinoo's season-long training arc. That's apparently the best of the best. Keep an eye out for everyone Jinoo meets and says goodbye to, and I'll have a tally of people we've already met to make this simple. After Jinoo gets sent to Giga Hell, he does some daily training, and then enters an instant dungeon. He leaves the dungeon and instantly mogs a bunch of D-ranks fighting a gate boss. Only one of these people are important. A person we met already, Juhi. Enjoying his new rank of D, Jinoo enters a dungeon to earn some cash. There he meets Jiho, as well as his new strike team. It takes a grand total of 20 whole minutes for the strike team to be revealed as evil. They have their villain speeches, and Jinoo kills them the next episode. Now that Jinoo's C rank, he goes back to his incest dungeon, only peering his polyangular face out when he receives a summon to clear a gate. There he meets some old faces, as well as becoming acquainted with Kang Shik and his gaggle of prisoners, which Kang all kills in the next episode, along with a couple of Jinoo's old mates. The bandana one doesn't even get the talk, I think. Jinoo then kills Kang, acquiring the prestigious rank of B in the process. After this, Juhi and Chahul leave the story, taking a flight to Utah to become Mormons or some shit, I don't know. Jinoo spends a little longer in B rank, him and Jiho setting up a strike team, where they meet a whole bunch of other people, with only one of them being actually important, Hang Song-yi. After clearing a few dungeons, Jinoo meets 2 White Tiger Guild representatives, one of which he threatens the life of. After a rousing time of making a grown man piss himself, Jinoo enters a special instance dungeon, one where he gets to finally acquire a job. How exciting. In the dungeon, he meets his best bud for life that quickly becomes his best bud for afterlife, turning Jinoo into A rank. Then Jinu fights a bunch of mooks, gets lucky, fills out his job application, and hey presto, Jinu is now S rank. Yeah, he kinda skipped a step back there, huh? It's up in the air what Jinu's rank really is throughout Season 1, but I'm pretty confident in my analysis, because I'm always right. But that's not why I went through all of that. I broke it all down just to get this number. The amount of people Jinu meets and who actually stick around in the story, and compare that to the amount of characters in episode 2. Yeah, I'm sure that's very normal for a series, and very healthy too. I mean, who needs things like long-term characters? We got Jinu in the system, baby, and that's all we'll ever need. I don't think I need to mention this, but just in case there are Solo Leveling fans still using ChatGPT to summarize this video, I'll compare this to a very similar show, One Punch Man. It stars an overpowered main character and follows his journey through a ranking system of superpowered individuals. The first thing I should point out is that OPM is a parody anime, so most of what it does is a bit. Like, the letter ranking system is so bad, it works as a punchline of its own. That being said, OPM still takes its time with its main character Saitama, who slowly climbs the ranks, giving us, the audience, a wealth of perspective on what this superpowered society is like. We get to see your average blokes in C rank, where Saitama has to fulfill a daily quota or be fired from being a hero, to the B ranks, who have formed their own cliques and organizations. We even see the A rank, where one hero stands at the very top, making sure no unworthy hero makes it to S rank. A lot of these dynamics are only shown later in the show, sure, as is expected from a show that has a normal pace. But even in the early episodes, we meet a man like Moomin Rider, who was OPM's version of episode 1 Jinu. Even though he's weak, pathetic and talentless, he's treated with the utmost respect by most human characters, not so much the monsters. These are thought out and well-loved characters that are given time to shine, even if they are completely outstrapped by Saitama's strength. Now look back at Solo Leveling, where the only characters that ever stick around are Jinu's family, those that suck up to Jinu, and people who Jinu has yet to surpass in strength. No person is sacred enough to not be forgotten about. But, yet again, I am once again befuddled, because this aspect is praised, not bemoaned. Solo Leveling prioritizing story speed above all else is why people claim to like the show, with Jinu being the only person the show's fans can name off the top of their heads. It's like feeding someone a whole lemon and having them say, "Please sir, may I have another?" Actually, it's more like giving someone white bread to gnaw on, because of how generic the whole show is. I know this is an old man yells at cloud moment, but does anyone like the music in this show? Come on, raise your hand. I promise I won't be mean, I won't shout at you, belittle you, make you feel unintelligent, and aha! Everyone come look at this dumbass who likes generic ass trap beats and anime. The intro and outro are completely uninspired. They are interchangeable with every anime Sigma TikTok edit. Hell, these songs wouldn't be out of place in a 2K sports game. Just something that's vaguely energetic, and has dog shit lyrics that just say things that happen in the show. Fucking reawakening, opening the gate, leveling up, fucking trite. And it also features another pet peeve of mine. Why does the intro to a Korean anime use English as the lyrics? You're just kind of giving the game away for who the show is for, right? White boys from Montana who think Joe Rogan is the coolest specimen they've ever seen. I mean, this is the only demographic that could think Jinu is cool, so I guess I understand catering to them. But why do twink dude bros think Jinu is awesome? Well, because
life is like a video game, trying hard to beat the stage, all while I am still collecting coins.
I've been dancing around it, but now is a good time to discuss the show's side quest and main quest style of storytelling. The main quest is just your standard plot for any show. Basic events being the double dungeon, Jinu's first kill, his second kill, forming a strike team, all while his secret is slowly being revealed to society, right? For events like him meeting the guild masters and shit. And that is entirety of the main plot this season. And the side quest is, well, every point between these moments when Jinu fucks off into an instant dungeon, which contain no side characters and barely any relevance to the story outside of making Jinu stronger. No care is put in to make these dungeons fit into the world, they just exist and we're supposed to be fine with that. That is a level of laziness that even Minecraft devs can aspire to. I'm just joking, I think the Minecraft team is doing a good job. Anyway, compare this to an anime I know the author has watched, Hunter x Hunter. The whole Jeju Island incident being a testament to how imitation isn't always the sincerest form of flattery, which I will not be getting into for this video. However, in Hunter x Hunter there is another arc that is more applicable to this first season, that being where they go into a video game world, where the main character Gon also goes on side quests to get stronger. The quests themselves aren't anything special, most of them getting completed in a montage. Yet there still is an actual quest aspect to it. Stuff like a dying old man saying, "Oh my dear boy, our village is dying. Please go kill and collect 25 rat scalps and you'll have saved the village." Extremely basic stuff, right? That gives God an opportunity to explore the world, and maybe even show off how much of a good boy he is. I love God, he should be protected, and Jing should be cut in twain for his sins. But, apparently, all of that is too complicated for solo leveling, because we never get as much as a title card explaining an area. No moments where Jinwoo has to interact with this bizarre world the system created. There's nothing, zilch, nada. No one gives a flying fuck while making the show. It's insanity. All these sections is Jinwoo being alone with his thoughts as he almost gets killed over and over. And it's not like he's fighting anything interesting either. He goes from fighting goblins, to wolves, to a big snake, a big spider, a big dog, and then a horde of European knights for some reason. It's like if ChatGPT wrote a D&D dungeon, just random shit that has a vague fantasy vibe. This is felt in the main quest too, of course. Just about the only interesting enemies are the Stone Titans, which only exist in the first 2 episodes, of course. Everything after is too generic to even remember. Even the villains for the overarching plot this season, the ant colony on Jeju Island, would be cool if it weren't completely derivative of Hunter x Hunter. Again, I'll get into it, but that is not for this current video. What is in Season 1 is stupid enough to talk about, because while Jinwoo is often Ram Ranch, the show constantly wants to remind you of this raid. A bunch of seemingly important people are constantly discussing it. We see the interviews that keeping the public engaged on the idea of the 4th raid. We see these important people talk about how important these interviews are, drafting up battle plans and going to scouting missions, only to find out the ants are evolving.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
And it would be cool to learn more about and get invested into, if it weren't for us having to constantly switch back to Jinwoo with a thumb up his ass doing nothing. It's a stop and start feeling of like we're going somewhere before we're cut off by Jinwoo again. So not only does he take screen time away from the actually interesting plot, he also turns the overall pacing into a sludge fest by forcing us to go back to him every 2 minutes. And it's not like he's adding anything, these cutaways aren't even, "Now what does Jinwoo think?" moments. He has no idea what's going on, he never does. He's a know-nothing idiot, yet the whole world revolves around him. Speaking of the world, you know, I've spent all of this time talking about the shit-ass quest elements of the story, but I haven't talked much about the world itself, mainly because there isn't much to talk about. Most of my complaints are just nitpicks, I'll admit, like it wasn't enough that the gates just be threats to humanity, they could wipe out an entire city if not cleared within 1 week. But they also have to contain a giga power source, a form of crystal that only grows in gates that every government in the world wants. With one of the main reasons behind its appeal is that it's, quote, safer than nuclear. Not to get into the whole nuclear energy debate, but the whole series is directly telling us how unsafe it is to collect these crystals. It's way more dangerous than even mining coal, which, you know, created the saying, "canary in the coal mine," because of how unsafe coal mining is. It's a massive nitpick, but shit like this is fun to talk about, and that's why you're here, right? So here's another side of the lazy world building, the top 5 guilds of Korea, which are funny to me for so many reasons. The first is the fact they're called guilds in the first place. There's no reason, they work and operate like normal corporations. And yes, I know, the guilds were the medieval version of the firm, but I also know that you know that the author has no idea about that. There's no way he put more thought into it than, video games have guilds, therefore my story should also have guilds. Look no further than the name of the top 5 Korean guilds. Also, why are there only 5 guilds? No one in the story knows, nor do any character ever talk about what guilds do, and none of you know either, nor do you care. So let's talk about the really funny part, which is the guild's names. We have the absolutely awe-inspiring Knights, White Tiger, Hunters, Fame, and Fiend. These names suck ass, right? They're exactly what a 14-year-old thinks makes cool, advanced guild names. 4 out of 5 are just one word that say nothing of what the guild actually does. Like, who names their guild Hunters? Are you even allowed to do that? Surely that's like if the Coca-Cola company just called themselves Soda, or Nintendo just called themselves Video Games. And this is one of the 2 main guilds we interact with. Its guild leader is the Tall Glass of Fire Jong-in, and I wonder if it became one of the most powerful guilds because people thought they were just applying to be hunters, when in actuality they were signing their asses away to Jong-in. God, I wish that were me. What? Anyway, tell me what the fuck's up with the Fiend Guild. Are they like the evil guild or some shit? Do they hire only evil hunters who use retardas and steal yellow rats from young boys? Imagine a company of any type being called Fiend in real life, getting your daily bread from the Fiend supermarket, buying Super Mario from Fiend Stop, or even actual companies run by reincarnations of Satan like BlackRock or Palantir. It kinda gives the whole game away if they're called Fiend. And another thing, do these dickheads get 2 names? I was watching season 2 and they kept calling themselves the Reapers Guild, which isn't any better, by the way. Yet it says right here in season 1 that they are Fiend. Wait a minute, I realized the author never thought this through, so neither should I. Moving on. The rest of the names are just as bad. Why is a Korean guild based on European knights? Is this the LARP guild? Is it like how there are dojos in America that are run by the whitest kids you know? Next up, naming your business that is built on preventing daily calamity, Fame, is saying the quiet part out loud, I think, on what your organization actually cares about. And I think that's a bad look, Chief. And finally, White Tiger, which is crazy for 2 reasons. First, the SEO on White Tiger gotta be crazy bad. They gotta be like number 10 on Google search results at most. Secondly, why name your Korean guild after animals native to the north of India? Surely there's an Indian, Nepalese, etc. guild or 2 that would want that name instead. Yet I get that its guildmaster is a guy that can transform into a magical beast. And yes, the transformation is white, but it is not a discernible creature of any kind, outside of Wulongs from One Piece. While these names are incredibly generic and speak nothing on how these guilds operate, or even the region they're from, the biggest blunder here is the fact none of these guilds are named after some dude's last name, like every company in the real world. And this is stupid not just from a realism perspective, it's just good world building to have plot relevant things named after plot relevant people. Like if one of the Japanese guilds in season 2 was called Inoki. As an audience, we all collectively would understand that, oh, Inoki, as in Antonio Inoki, the Japanese wrestler turned politician that during his time in office held a wrestling match in North Korea, where he kicked Ric Flair's ass in front of Kim Jong-il. Everyone knows that. I'm focusing on this because this is the type of shit normal writers munch the carpet over. It's the last thing you want to gloss over, the world building of the most important factions in your world. They are the world elements you use to point towards what's to come, or to set up for a later reveal. Like imagine if the writing in Solo Leveling was good, and it gets revealed in the final season that the owner of the Hunters Guild is actually Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Genu is shocked when he looks at the Jumbotron, looking on in horror as he realizes he's not the only one with the system's power when he hears Triple H's theme song. Sorry, I was caught up in writing peak there for a second. So, I've talked about the world and the person the world revolves around, but what of the like 8 other people with speaking roles? Let me put Solo Leveling into perspective. The first season has 12 episodes, not counting the bizarre recap in the middle. Each episode is the standard length of 24 minutes, meaning there is a total of 288 minutes, or round about 4.5 hours. And for all the time spent of at least 2 movies, can you name more than 3 things about any character? I'll even make this easy. You can include their appearance and their names. So, how many did you get? How much do you remember about Juhi with her 2 left feet having ass? Or Jino with his blood diamond money ass? Or Yoonho with his yee $30 haircut ass? And if you remember any of these aspects, no you don't, I made them up. And if I didn't just admit that, you wouldn't believe me. Ain't nothing about this show rubbed off on you. Compare that to literally any other anime. Just pick any random one you've watched recently. For me, I watched Attack on Titan like a month ago, and I could tell you 5 things from every character seen in the first 12 episodes, no sweat. Here's a list of them. It's not hard. It's actually quite easy when a show puts more than 2 nanograms of effort into characterization. And to prove what I mean, I'll talk about every named character in Season 1 until exhaustion. Fucking time me on this shit, it won't take long. Sorry for my pronunciation of these names, I am very white. Lee Juhi, a B-rank healer who, despite her high ranking, decides to pal around in the mosh pits of low-rank gates. This is caused by high levels of anxiety that are so bad her legs stop working right as she's about to die. Quite literally, in fact. She goes from the most capable person in a party to completely useless in a matter of seconds. She acts as the first love interest to the piece of cardboard that will never love her back, eventually getting taken to the farm halfway through Season 1, never coming back into the plot, and she just so happens to be one of the best characters in the show. Kim Sung-chik, weak-willed D-rank family man that betrays Jinu in his time of need. Later regrets his decision before he gets murked. The most interesting thing he does is get in a spat with his wife, where he convinces her that him dying is based actually. Park Byung-shik, guy that asks who Jinu is for us, and gets bisected in episode 2. Kang Tai-shik, psychopath hunter that works for the government, gives a whole "we're not so different, you and I" speech to Jinu. The show makes a point that he doesn't have any deeper motive behind his bloodlust, which could be interesting if this wasn't how every human villain also acted. Song Chiul, a top-grade swordsman that was given mage powers upon awakening. How ironic. He is supposedly a mentor/parental figure to Jinu, but the most advice he ever gives him is justifying Jinu murdering a guy. After the double dungeon, Chiul becomes a one-armed bandit. It leaves the series halfway through alongside Juhi. This is the second most interesting character in Solo Leveling. Also, I like the way he says, "I'm finished," when he is about to be finished. Byack Yoonho, firefighter turned S-rank that now manages the White Tiger Guild. He is a man of instincts. He spends most of the season rooting in the background gassing up the Jeju Island incident. He is interchangeable with every other guildmaster in the series. Hex code D1A4BB. Chol Jong-in, leader of the Hunters Guild, also interchangeable with every other guildmaster in the series, spending his time juicing up Jeju Island. He has a laid-back, calculating personality that contrasts his incredible firepower. All that being said, he is a dickhead, and also the most interesting S-rank we meet in Season 1, but that's not saying much. Hex code F36FBA. Yo Jinho, Ivy League and Nepo baby butt buddy to Jinu. He has daddy issues and feels inferior to his older brother. He is the only friend of Jinu. Seemingly out of pure fear, Jinu will kill him. I honestly really like his and Jinu's interactions. It's just a shame they barely get to hang out. Due to Jinu's daily escapades into fishing that takes up half the season. Also, this is a thing that happens in Season 2, but Jinho honestly believes Jinu is a pedophile, which is too funny not to mention. Yu Myung-han, nailed that. Older biddy that only exists so Jinho has a father figure to compare Jinu to. He also bankrolls the couple's hobby, showing that the straight father of his gay son can really make a difference in the world. Jinho's brother, soul patch arsehole that only exists so Jinho has an older brother figure to compare Jinu to, possibly homophobic to contrast his ally father. Jinu's mum, she's in a plot coma. Jinu's sister, Songjina, she's not in a coma and is studying to become a doctor. She constantly nags Jinu that he doesn't have to kill himself for money, with Jinu being the reasonable man he is and brushes off her womanly whims. Hang Song-yi, an E-rank hunter and classmate to Gina, she wants to be a cool special girl and become a professional hunter. To this end, she joins a strike team with Jinu, where she just plays cards with a bunch of drunk bums the whole time. She is the reason that Jinho thinks Jinu is a pedophile. Go Gun-hee, law-dumping old fart who sits on his ass playing Fortnite all day. Would be cool if he ever got out of his Herman Miller and did something. Woo Jin-chul, Gun-hee's whipping boy, who is constantly at the scene of the crime when Jinu needs someone to defend his stupid actions. The most interesting thing about him is that his English voice actor is ProZD, and I like that guy. The Prisoners. No, I don't know any of their names. They're bloodthirsty psychopaths that murder because they're bored. The 5 to 6 guys that try and kill Jinu and Jinho. Bloodthirsty psychopaths that murder in order to earn like $5 more. Hwang Dong-suk. a man with a funny name that is just as unrememberable as his 5-6 Psycho Party. His only lingering impact on the story is that his brother is an S-rank hunter, Hwang Dong-soo, said S-rank hunter brother that prioritizes meetings for his companies over getting revenge for his little brother's death. I think the series is trying to make a comment on capitalism here, but if they are, it falls flat on its ass like me in a yoga class. Cha Ha-in, pretty lady that's the strongest woman hunter in South Korea. She is loyal to the Hunters Guild, despite constantly being approached to jump ship to Yoonji Construction. She has an oddly sensitive nose that can smell the midichlorians around hunters or whatever, and this nose definitely won't make her instantly fall in love the first time she meets Jinu. Ang Seung-min, dude who I didn't even know had a name before making this video, who is a guild manager for the White Tiger Guild, who is also one of the first people to catch on to Jinu's wily antics, and is forced to close his eyes and open his mouth because of it. He goes through this whole rigmarole with Jinu, where he gets finessed out of like 200 million won. It's really funny the shit fit Jinu throws from this guy looking up publicly available information, assistant to the guild manager guy, is here to represent all the characters who only have one line, that is only used to glaze Jinu. Don't remember his name, and you don't either. Moving on. And there you have it. Every character that has a speaking role in Season 1. I may be missing one or two, but if you could actually name any of the other people I missed, I'll give you a $10 coupon to Wendell's. And even with no one making it past a paragraph, I was stretching to find something to say about any of these guys. They get so little screen time, man. And even those that do, either die the same episode they introduced, or talk about Jeju Island over and over, like there are no other things going on in the world other than Jinu and Jeju. And as I said at the top, compare this to any other anime in a 12-episode time span. I could write whole dissertations on what people are getting up to in even bad anime like Bleach or Naruto. But anyway, I have nothing more to talk about with these side characters, so I want to talk about the funniest aspect of the series, its attempts at themes. If Solo Leveling is about anything, I'd have to say it is about freedom. Insert Braveheart clip here. The very foundation of the Hunters is a rigid caste system. Once you have awakened, you cannot gain any more power. Those born at the top stay at the top, and those born on the bottom stay on the bottom. A Western parallel would be League of Legends, and people like Jinu were supposed to stay at the very bottom of Iron. But with the power of the system, Jinu can walk down a different path. Jinu can one day be free. Jinu can one day be a free divine herald. But not until he walks the exact path the system wants. So Jinu's not free just yet. If we pretend ourselves to be vultures and are picking apart anything from this anime's corpse, I'd say this freedom motif is really the only edible morsel. The issue is that when I said if Solo Leveling is about anything, that was a pretty big if. Because even when the show attempts to do Babby's first theme, it utterly fails in execution, if it even tried in the first place. The power given to Jinu is either completely hidden to those around him, only to be used if he is across the street from a city-threatening monster, that he may or may not have caused, by the way, or only used in a transaction, when Jinu wants to make more money acting as a temp hire, Jiho offering billions of wacky stacks to become Jinu's business partner. The guild manager guy must be sworn to secrecy, pay Jinu's friends millions of funny bucks, upon which guild manager guy only receives his phone number. All of these transactions pretty much end with Jinu getting exactly what he wants. He wants to launder money through Jinho's raids, so he accepts the partnership. Jinu doesn't want to join the White Tiger Guild, so instead he fleeces the guild manager guy and only gives him his phone number in return. Even when Jinu does seemingly heroic things, they always turn out to be the exact outcome he wanted anyway. Preventing an entire dungeon break on his own was him actually avoiding the summons, thereby kind of causing the dungeon break in the first place, but luckily for the rest of the city, he just so happened to be on the same street before everything bad could have got worse. The 2 times Jinu killed the serial killer / serial killers, he got a pay rise, and kept his secret identity hidden. Or he got a really good ability out of it. Jinu just kind of does what he wants when he wants, and the entire universe bends over backwards to reward him, and I don't want to get it twisted. These elements of freedom and what it means to hold power are baked into the series, but whenever someone has a big monologue about what it means to be free or to wield power, it's clear that no thought was put into these, quote, hype moments and aura farming. Let me explain what are these lost potential moments. when Jinoo runs through the Villain of the Week for the 5th time in a row. Kang Shik, a hired gun for all intents and purposes, gives Jinoo his "we're not so different" monologue. Kang was paid by a benefactor to kill the perpetrators of the young girl's assault. But Kang didn't care about the money. He also didn't care about delivering justice. All he cared about was having an excuse to do what he already wanted to do. Does that remind you of anyone? Maybe the man standing in Kang's blood, who only killed Kang because Jinoo's benefactor forced him to. Jinoo didn't want to kill Kang, the serial killer who murdered one of Jinoo's friends, who, upon killing, gave Jinoo an extremely powerful ability. Jinoo's hand was simply forced to commit such an act of violence by the system. When it says jump, Jinoo says how high. Because if Jinoo had done anything else, the system would have killed him, right? That's how Jinoo justifies his own love of humanity to us anyway. The hard truth is, he never tries anything but killing. He never pushes back against the system. And it's not like he doesn't have any leverage against the system. He has himself, Jinoo. The system seems to need him to be alive for his goal, so why would it kill Jinoo over something so pointless? You know, if this were a video from like 5 years ago, you would hear a little with a number incrementing at the top of the screen. Did I just get a fucking tsunami warning in the middle of recording? Jesus Christ, let me look at this. Anyway, Jinoo's and the system's relationship is a plot hole so large, all the author can do is ignore it. One man's plot hole is another man's plot treasure. Because if you can spare me just a little bit more time, my dear viewer, I would like to explain how Solo Leveling, a show about nothing and made for the lowest common denominator, has fascinated me so. Because the story of a man who started from the bottom and gets pushed and shoved around by everyone around him, shouting to God on his deathbed about how everything would be different if only he was stronger. He then receives said power, only to realize how pathetic and small he even is, even when at the top, putting on a mask to hide his own inadequacies from himself. A mask of masculinity, if you will. Jinoo is a down-on-his-luck guy, worst in the world, yada yada yada. If Jinoo wants to provide for his sister and sick mother, he is constantly forced to fight for his life in dungeons. This all changes, however, when the worst and best day of his life happens. Best because this is the first time he's helped his party survive, not the other way around. And it is the worst day of his life because, well, he and everyone around him is about to die. But that's alright, because Jinoo's got a plan. As long as everyone follows exactly what Jinoo says, then everyone who is currently alive stays alive. As long as the rest of the party doesn't drop the currently crippled Jinoo and run for the door. Oh dear. So here lies Jinoo, a man forced to fight for his life every day and treated like absolute shit because of it. A man who finally had a moment to prove his worth and rise to the occasion, only to be betrayed by the cowardice of the people around him, abandoning the weakest link while they all run away. The last decision he would make in his life is sacrificing himself for his best friend. Cold comfort for the man who was about to die like the dog everyone said he was. But this isn't the end quite yet. He awakens in a hospital bed with a brand new power to shake the system that treated him like such shit. Shake it to his very core. To become a new man that doesn't answer to anybody and does what he wants. As long as whatever he wants falls in line with the new system's desires. Jinoo must train his body every day or face punishment. He mustn't tell anyone about this power. He must complete the system's task under immediate threat of death. He must throw his own body into the meat grinder day in, day out to achieve his new master's goal. Which to Jinoo is more than fine. For now. You're telling him he can finally achieve his goal of being stronger, being able to provide for his sick family, and all he has to do is what he's always done. Struggle. and he doesn't even have to be judged by his peers. He gets to isolate himself to the people that belittle him, only to appear before them when he is powerful. That fucking rocks, dude. And it's not like he can't be with the people he cares for the most, his family. He can pencil in a visit or two in between his dungeon runs on the brink of death. It's like fishing in a way. It's just Jinoo, deadly monsters, his own thoughts of inadequacy that can only be silenced from his blood flying out of his mouth, and the lingering promise that one day this will all be over. Jinoo will be safe, and he will never have to struggle again. But before that, Jinoo decides he needs to launder some of the money he earned in the system's dungeons, deciding to join in on a raid as a temporary hire, where he meets his soon-to-be best and only friend, Jinho. But this dungeon run isn't just a picnic for Jinoo, not because the dungeon itself is difficult, far from it. He could clear the entire thing with his dick tied behind his back. That's what he's been training for, after all. The only difficult part is his raid party's betrayal. And not that they're a tough fight or anything. Jinoo is just having a hard time, because the system is forcing him to kill this party, at threat of Jinoo's heart stopping. Jinoo thinks for a moment as to why the system is asking him to commit such an act. Why, even after all this time of training and struggling, he is still being forced to do something he doesn't want to do. But it's all okay, right? I mean, these guys want to kill Jinoo and Jinho, and the system will kill him if he doesn't, right? So he won't be losing his humanity by killing his fellow man. After all, there's nothing he could have done differently. He's just following orders. That's what Jinho is saying, that Jinoo is 100% in the right, and his actions were 1000% necessary. It would be nice though, Jinoo thinks, if Jinho would stop forcing that damn smile. Jinoo goes back into his cycle of dungeon isolation, only coming out to talk to his sister and to link and build with Jinho. Some time passes, and Jinoo gets a summons for a dungeon raid. Try as he has, he can't ignore these government summons. That is a good thing he did show up, otherwise all of his old dungeon buddies would die cold and alone in a cave. Jinoo pretty much runs back the playbook from his temp raid. He hides his power level, and only reveals himself to kill the bad guy before things get worse. The situation is a little different this time. The serial killer guy, Kang Shik, is waffling on about how he and Jinoo aren't so different. But that can't be the case. Kang only kills people for his own benefit. Jinoo only commits murder when it's absolutely necessary, and the people he kills are the complete scum of the earth as well. Jinoo and Kang are nothing alike. That's what Jinoo's old mentor Chiyo says anyway. Everything Jinoo is doing is justified. Jinoo will show everybody he's actually a really good guy. One day, when he's finally free. And it looks like that moment to prove himself has finally come. From the system he receives a job change quest, whatever that means. He enters this new grandiose dungeon and prepares to do what he's always done, struggle. But that's simply not going to work this time. Jinoo slowly realizes this as he gets his ass beat down again and again and again. But there's no way he'll die here, right? The system would never allow that. It needs Jinwoo just as much as Jinoo needs the system, right? The self-doubt sets in. Because if the system has left Jinoo on his own, Jinoo knows exactly why. Because Jinoo is still too weak. He hasn't pushed himself enough. He hasn't worn himself down to the very marrow in his bones. There was still more time he could have spent training instead of hanging out in cafes with supposed friends. I mean, look at him. He hasn't changed a bit from the worst day in his life. After months of training, he is still just a little man lying in a pool of his own blood, at the mercy of faceless abominations. What greater measure for the fact he hasn't changed than his own crooked luck? Because that is the only way he has, and will only ever be able to, survive. Jinoo is able to complete his job change quest, and the system rewards him greatly, granting Jinoo a magnificent power that will finally set Jinoo on the path of becoming a new man. A great king, surrounded by faceless, eternally loyal, immortal soldiers of the enemies that he has killed. He will become a man to erect an empire over a land of salt. Did you enjoy that? I know I did. And I hope that gave you an idea of just the wild and boring but also strangely intriguing story that is Solo Leveling. You know, there is just this great story hidden under all of these layers and layers of trite that can only exist because of said garbage on top, right? It is because Solo Leveling is a generic reverse isekai power fantasy that's target demographic is weirdly misogynistic teenager boys, that there is an underlying theme of a man saying he wants to escape an oppressive system, yet in actuality he only wants to be at the top, a king with no equal. Then everyone will be sorry. Jinoo is a guy eternally chasing his own tail, never to be satisfied. Yeah, you know, there's something really poetic about it to me. And don't worry, I've heard in the sequel manga that he's become stronger than even SSJ God tier whatever Goku. Surely that will be enough to finally let Jinoo be satisfied. Probably not. Anyway, I hate Solo Leveling with every fiber of my being. I hate the fact that everyone kind of knows it's bad, knows it's horrible, yeah, people still don't really care. Just layers and layers of garbage revealing a crooked center. If you're a Solo Leveling fan that somehow made it to the end of this video, your boos mean nothing to me. I've seen what you clap for. I've read the subreddit, posts with tens of thousands of upvotes that have more spelling mistakes and grammatical errors than a 5th grade English class in Bangkok. I mean, look at this shit, Jesus. Is this what I talked like when I was a teenager? Is this what I would have posted if I became an even more maladjusted adult than I already am? Becoming a man baby who could only express joy through hype moments. God, it's like staring into the abyss. And I want to leave this video with one message to you people. No, I have not died in a tsunami.